Okay, guys, welcome back to another edition of Livewire. I'm your host, Jared Moore, and Livewire is the program where we take your questions from the chat. On tonight's program, we're going to be speaking with Mvskoke Soprano Kirsten Kunkle, as well as Choctaw Baritone Mark Billy. Is that right? It's Choctaw?
Yep.
All right, great. And we're going to be talking about the world premiere on Saturday of the American Indian Symphony in Oklahoma City at the Civic Center Music Hall. Is that right?
I think it is.
There is a link to to where you can buy tickets and read more about it in the description of this video. Guys, want to check it out. And we might be joined by Composer Jerod Tate, Chickasaw Composer Jerod Tate. We don't know for sure, but if he jumps in, he's just going to jump into the meeting in the middle of it, and we'll go from there. But that being said, thank you so much, guys, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mado.
Yoko Key, great to be here.
So I guess to start off with, what is the American Indian Symphony? Like, could you talk a little bit about what it consists of? And I know conceptually there's some interesting things there.
Absolutely. So it is a traditional classical Western symphony in 6 native languages, 6 different movements. And we are singing for the first time in 5 of them. Mark and I are singing brand new languages for us. It begins with Wichita, and it's a thank you to the Wichita Nation. And then the second movement is Potawatomi. And then the third movement is Apache. The fourth movement is Chickasaw, the one we've sung in. The fifth movement is Modoc, and the sixth movement is Cheyenne. So we have themes from various tribal themes and hymnody and things like that as well, all the way throughout. It's very much in the style of Jerod Tate's music, that he is trying to honor the individual nations, and it's kind of meant to be a gift to all of the nations of Oklahoma. That was his goal in this, is that it honored 6 of the nations of Oklahoma. Obviously, there are many, many more, including Mvskoke and Choctaw.
Right. Well, and it's amazing, too. And we should also mention to the audience, I believe there's going to be 2 other pieces that are performed in addition to the symphony, one of them honoring the Murrah bombing victims, and then another one because of Mr. Tate's upbringing with ballet. Ballet, that's what it is. And there's more information about that, you guys, at the link in the description if you want to read about that. So what you guys are going to sing in 6 different languages, and how many had you had experience with before? Is it 2 or 1?
Just 1.
So you guys are having to sing in 5 different native languages. How much training and practice did you guys get to do that? And what was that process like?
Well, not a whole lot, but I'll let Mark talk about that.
Sure. Well, as a classically trained singer, you sort of get brought up being thrown into new languages, and it's just part of the deal. And actually, I love learning new languages and learning how to pronounce things. And it's interesting because as a native person, if you've grown up hearing certain sounds of your own language, you can always build upon that and add new nuances to that. And that's kind of what we've been doing. We've had some exposure, some help from some first, this is their first language speakers. So they were the translators, and we've got to work one-on-one in that. I mean, that's been my favorite. I kind of almost tear up about it because every single one of the translators have told us to hear our big, powerful operatic voices singing their language has been such a blessing to them. And we just have to be very diligent and use our wits to get through the language and do it justice.
So this is the world premiere of this piece, obviously. So there's no recordings to listen to other than the recordings that were made for us. And we got to meet with, I think, 3 of the 6 different translators that were able to meet with us in person in addition to those recordings. So there were many things that we tried to put together, and then once we got with them, we just really listened for nuance and specificity. So because we're trying to do it justice, this is important new historic work to try to retain and reclaim these languages and make sure that they're part of this revitalization. And this is one way of doing it. So our recording of this will be the standard for it, so we want to make sure we do it justice.
Yeah, it's really, you guys are on the cutting edge of this stuff. Every time we do an interview about anything related to really the theater or opera or anything, you guys are right there forging the new path. The recording of this, is it just going to be for like research? Or I guess, like every time we do an interview, I ask, like, where could people go if they want to see this after the fact, if they can't make the performance? Is there going to be anywhere for them to do that? Could they purchase a copy of it? Or
so I think the plan is to have a good archival recording that they plan to put on public radio in Oklahoma.
Okay,
So
right.
that is the plan, and the Oklahoma City Philharmonic will have the rights to that.
I see. So we'll keep our ears out for it.
Sounds good.
With this performance, I mean, this to me is just an outsider, seems like a Herculean task to, learn these languages enough to where you could sing them. And then, when we talked about writing the music and also performing it, translating things from English into Mvskoke or Chickasaw, right? There are syntactic differences, and I imagine between those 6 languages, there are like drastic. Are there patterns that you guys maybe noticed when you were doing it? That is like, because I know in Mvskoke, it's subject, object, verb, or like just the structure of how it is set up that carried over between all of the languages, or are they all just drastically different?
I think they're all very different.
I think they're all pretty different.
Each tribe has a different.
There are obviously some similarities. I mean, every once in a while, Mark and I will be like, "What's your word for this?"
And it overlaps a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, and sometimes we'll do that because we just did that the other day. I was like, "What's buffalo?" It's Yanasa for us. I mean, what's yours?
Yanish.
Yeah, so they're close-ish, but as far as like sentence structure and grammar, we are nowhere near being able to talk about that for these languages, because we're really just doing the diction to make sure that it's accurately sung.
Mm-hmm. And another aspect of that, so the tribes are all tribes that are in Oklahoma, but not all from Oklahoma. For example, one of the languages is Modoc, and that's kind of a Great Lakes northern tribe. So that language is very, very different than any of the Muskogean things that we've done.
Absolutely.
Well, I wanted to welcome Mr. Tate. Jerod Tate's joined us. He jumped right in here. So we were just talking about all the process of learning the languages, the 6 languages. I wanted to jump back in time a little bit, though, and ask you if you're able to talk about it at this point. The conceptual part of this symphony, like how did it come about? Like what were you trying to achieve by showing, showing the 6 tribes, in this and the movements, how those things are congruent.
Well, I wanted to create a work that paid homage to the several cultural. We have several cultural regions of Indian country that are represented in the state of Oklahoma. And so I chose 6 major cultural regions, and then just was thoughtful about which tribes would be good to kind of specifically be in the symphony. And so that's I just thought it through, and that's how I came up with that. But I wanted a work that had several movements that paid homage to 6 different tribes that represented 6 major cultural regions in this, that's an Indian country in the state of Oklahoma. So it's kind of like it's a very like Indian country patriotic piece in that sense. And so so I just had thought about it, and that's just kind of what sifted through, and this is what felt the most comfortable.
How long did it take you to create the symphony? Is it like a long term project, or the research and all of that? How much?
Yeah, there's different phases that go into that. And so I had to just finding translators who feel comfortable with with translating text in a contemporary fashion into their language, just takes some time, and then they have to process it and take their time. And so then in the meantime, I'm just building the concepts of what I want each movement to feel like, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah. So I mean, there's when there's several layers involved in the work, then it just takes those time to address each one of those elements. So, you know.
One of the other things I was talking about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
No, that's like basically it's like a theatric production in which you've got different aspects of the production, and so but I'm kind of like the entire production team on that sense. But with a concept, I just had several components to it, and they all just take time to put together. Yeah.
So one of the other things too we were talking about earlier is the other pieces apart from the symphony. There's a piece that's going to honor the Murrow bombing victims, and then also something that was included from your childhood exposure to ballet. Do you want to talk about that piece or your childhood exposure to ballet?
Absolutely. So my mother, Patricia, was a choreographer and dancer, and when I was in junior high and high school, along with she choreographed over 50 works while she was working at a university, and so. And in 4 years in a row, she choreographed Stravinsky's Firebird, Petrushka, and Rite of Spring, and then Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet in 4 consecutive years with her students. And those were very impactful because I was deeply immersed in those scores because I was always around my mother's process. I call myself a theater brat. I was always in rehearsal, and I knew her entire process of working with those. So I was, just without my knowledge, being taught how to orchestrate. And so that was, those are amazing scores. And so, Alexander just wanted something that kind of related to my experience. But the Firebird was one of the larger ballets that my mom choreographed early on when I was in junior high. And of course, that's an amazing score. So he was kind of, just kind of tipping his hat to me on that. And I'm really grateful. That was really thoughtful of him to do that. That was cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We've had
and to be honest with you, the ballets all have a great impact on my storytelling as well because in ballets, composers express their ethnicity and their cultural identity really clearly and really specifically. And so the Firebird itself is about a Russian tale, of the Firebird, and so that's like really critical to what I do is I'm focusing on our culture and our ethos within our tribes. And the Russian composers really were quite impactful in my development for that.
We had a question pop up in the chat while we were talking, guys, and Michael Billy is asking, is the songs with just words or is there any homage to traditional chants along with the symphony? So I think what they're asking is there any traditional singing that's incorporated into the separate things in the symphony?
It's not direct singing like you would see it at a social or ceremonial sense. The melodies are all within the pieces are highly influenced by the different tribes. And then the poetry is like me talking about the tribes and what I think is really cool about them. So I've internalized a lot of that and expressed it very much like visual American Indian artists do as well. So like if you go to Santa Fe Indian Market, you see all kinds of native artists that are expressing visually their feelings about their own tribe or even about other tribes around Indian country. So there's and it so kind of filters through their heart, and then it comes back out on the painting. It's a very similar process to what I'm doing with the orchestrations, but I don't have like deliberate imitation of social or ceremonial songs. It's not like that.
Okay. And I want to remind you guys that you're watching. If you have a question, you can pop it into the chat and we will ask it. I guess we are about at the halfway point. So with the symphony, this is the world premiere. What's next for the symphony? Is it going to go on a tour, or is this like the world premiere? And then like what's if people can't make the show, where could they possibly catch it again?
Well, we are actually professionally recording the concert. So this will be eventually released on a recording. So we'll hear it'll be available on Spotify. But more immediately important is that the Philharmonic and Canterbury Voices typically rebroadcast their concerts on KUCO on our local classical station somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks after the concert, and so people will be able to hear it streamed on the net. which is really cool. So yeah, so they'll be able to hear that, and we will make announcements online as well when that becomes available. But then I do know that our music director Alexander Micklethwaite has plans for future performances, and he does have some dreams about getting around the country. So those are all in development, and that's really cool. That's a very, very cool thing. He's a great visionary, and he's got lots of energy, and the fact that he's got a dream like that is pretty darn cool. So we're just gonna help feed positive energy into that.
Did we lose Jerod Moore? I think we might have lost Jerod Moore. I don't know if we're still recording or not.
Oh my gosh! Well, at least I told you all that.
Let's just keep talking about it, shall we? I don't know if we're going to get him back. I don't know if we're live or not. So
it's very exciting.
It is very exciting. So tonight we are having our first orchestra rehearsal in the Civic Center, and that's very exciting because we'll see what the space is like. But let's talk about last night, shall we?
Oh,
So
yeah.
last night we were at the First Americans Museum in Oklahoma City, and it was a very special event because not only did we have a panel.
Oh, sorry guys.
Oh, there you are. We've been talking.
reason,
We don't know if we're live or not.
My other thing crashed.
Okay, so are we back on?
Sorry
Or?
about that.
Have we been on, or are we back on?
I had to run and grab my other computer and turn it on. So bear with me, guys.
Okay.
That's okay, because I've got to grab my son something from Brahms.
Jerod, have we been live this whole time or no?
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Okay.
Jerod, were we live this whole time?
Yeah, we are live.
Okay, so we've been talking about the First Americans Museum and the event we did yesterday.
His name is Jerod too.
So yes, they're both Jerod. So,
Yeah.
Jerod squared. So last night we were at the First Americans Museum where we did an event, and it was exciting because we did a panel discussion with Jerod Tate, Mark Billy, myself, and Alexander Micklethwaite, who is our conductor and the conductor of the Oklahoma City Philharmonic. But then the more exciting thing is that we had everyone's, including ours, first listen to the symphony with just the orchestra. We didn't sing, we just listened. And that was really exciting. And that was at First Americans Museum. So that was really different, very cool. And every time we first hear Jerod's orchestrations, everything, first of all, clicks for us. We understand our music better, but we also have this overwhelming sense of the power of the sound that he has created. It's really very expressive and overwhelming almost to be in the room.
It's very emotional.
Yeah.
I always get emotional when I hear it for the first time.
It feels, well, I was telling Mark yesterday, when we did Loxi Shali, our tenor who was singing with us leaned over to me at the first rehearsal like that, and he said, "It's like we're in Ben-Hur." And it really is. It's that epic. It's that big emotional.
Ben-Hur, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what Hugo said at the first rehearsal, and it does have that feel to it. You know, where it's just that epic, almost like movie epic feeling to it. And
Absolutely.
So, if you've never been to a classical concert or never been to the symphony, this is a really great time, especially for tribal citizens. Come on out. You know, we want you there. We want you to have this experience. We're doing this because we love what we do, but also because we love our culture and our heritage. And we're doing this for you and for us communally. So please come out. If you've never been here, show up in jeans and a t-shirt. We don't care. Like, just come out, and be
Absolutely.
and just enjoy it. And bring your kids. And if you don't know when to clap and all that, don't worry about it. Just do it. Just have fun and be there, you know?
Yep.
And follow the lead of people around you if you want. But really, like, it would mean the most to us to have our tribes there.
Absolutely. And you guys, there are still tickets available. There is a link in the description of this video. You can click it and buy tickets. If you're in the OKC area and you don't have plans for Saturday night and you are a Native American citizen, definitely I would just, the tickets are I think it's like $24. It's like going to the IMAX or something, you know, is the same price. And you're going to see something that, honestly, depending on what happens in the future, you may not get to see it in Oklahoma for a while. You know, you may be able to hear it on the radio. You know, one of the things I wanted to ask too is, this is just going to be like an orchestral performance, right? There's not going to be any costumes or anything. It's just going to be an orchestra situation. Is that right?
It's true, yeah. But I have a pretty awesome dress I'm going to wear, so that's a nice surprise. It's by my Osage designer friend, so there you go. I am wearing it.
Our soloist will be in cultural bling, that's for sure.
Oh, I think that's the best way to say it. Cultural bling. I like it.
I also wanted to ask about the affiliation with the Canterbury Voices. What was it like working with them? And for people who may not know anything about the Canterbury Voices, like what are they, that type of a deal?
Oh, they're awesome. Mark, why don't you talk about that?
Sure. So I believe that the Canterbury Voices used to be the symphonic choir, or so they were the choir that would sing with the OKC Phil when they would have concerts. For us, they were an integral part of Luxi Shali, so it was a bit like coming home to see all of these people and these happy faces that we've missed and that we've made beautiful music with before, and getting to do it again it's been a real privilege. And Oklahoma people are very. So I'm an Oklahoma boy, and I live in Minnesota now, so I'm up north, and people are different up
It's
north.
true.
Oklahoma people are just a little bit kinder, I think. Not to say that Minnesota people aren't, but I have a special place.
When
in my
I
heart
came
for it.
back, the first day I was back, I was out trying to find lunch, and I was near the Skirvin Hotel in Oklahoma City, and I just took a little walk, and I just had the nicest interactions with people. And I just come from New York, and I love New York. I will never say anything against New York, but I was like, I forgot how nice Oklahomans are. I was like, yeah, and and I'm not from Oklahoma. I'm from Ohio, but also in the Midwest, and it is like a homecoming coming here. It is.
We do have a southern sweetness. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about in association with the premiere that you guys think we need to mention at this stage?
I think one thing that's really important is that, so we've got 6 different languages, but we're projecting what we call super titles, and above the stage on a strip is where you have the text both in our native languages and the translation in English. And that happens in opera all the time, so that people can understand what's happening really easily. So you'll be able to hear all the text painting happening with the voices in the orchestra that goes with the text itself. And so everybody will be able to understand exactly what's being said by the singers.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I think the big thing to note is that I don't think anything like this has ever been done. And I feel like I say that about Jerod's music all the
About a
time.
lot of things.
About
Yeah,
stuff,
that's true.
about all the stuff we do. But I feel like every time I meet with you, it's like, this has never been done before, Jerod Moore. And it's kind of true again. It is. In symphonic literature, this does not exist.
Yeah, well, that's why I love having you guys on the program too, is because every time it's like a new world premiere, and this is the first time anybody's ever done this. If you're a journalist, those are the things like, yes, this is great, awesome.
Well, one thing I think is important is I was talking to Pam Mowry, who's the executive director of Canterbury Voices, and I asked her, I said, what do I call this? Like, I'm calling it an American Indian Symphony, but is there also another, like a choral term that could possibly go with it? And so she's like, well, with Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the chorus doesn't sing until the very, very end, and that's what happens with a lot of symphonic works. Mahler, it's at the end, that kind of thing. And so in a symphonic work, the chorus isn't present throughout. So not only the chorus starts the whole thing, and so does the soloist. They're there for the whole piece. So I'm like scratching my repertoire head, like what other pieces are like this exactly. And so it's a little unique on that side. So I guess what we're doing is we're pushing the envelope a little bit, which is what we do as modern artists. All modern artists are always like pushing it a little bit more, and compared to what they've done in the past. So
Absolutely.
so this is a little different on that front, but the chorus and the soloists are present through the whole work.
And you mentioned modern artists are always pushing the envelope. My experience too is Native American artists are always trying to push the envelope. That's like a thing that they try to do across all of Native American artists. So you got double doses of it there. So I do want to thank you guys for coming on tonight. We are at 23 minutes. I don't see any more questions. Mr. Billy, is there anything you'd like to add that maybe we haven't talked about? I know Mr. Tate and Ms. Kunkle have got there. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I think they have it covered. We're just really excited to make some more history.
So last night, the governor of the Chickasaw Nation was at our event, and I had the honor of just having a nice conversation with him one-on-one. And he said, "You are all in a renaissance." And I said, I believe still there's hope, so I hope we can keep it going because
I agree.
we've worked so hard to get to this point, and we all just want to see it thrive and see our tribes thrive, see Indian country thrive, and build and grow for the next generations.
Jerod, you know that renaissance is in all kinds of aspects. Like we're doing all this language, and we have a lot of renaissance in language and development. But also, we're talking about tribal bling. We have a huge fashion explosion in Indian country right now, this very minute, and so they're representing all that. There's so many things culturally in Indian country that are really exploding, and this is part of it. And what a great time! I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
This is great.
Well, and Governor Anatubby, Governor Anatubby has been involved with stuff for a long time. So if he's, if he's saying that from his perspective, I would believe it absolutely, because he's not, he's no spring chicken himself. No slight to Governor Anatubby.
None of us are anymore, Eric. None of us are.
I'm Mvskoke, so it's okay. My wife is Chickasaw, so I might be getting her in trouble. Thanks, guys, for being on tonight. And for the audience, for you guys, I don't think I've got anything scheduled. I think next week we're going to try to premiere the gardening show maybe on Saturday. And if I can get the edit where we need to do to premiere the second season, we will probably do a live wire about it and have Courtney and Chris come on and talk about the second season of the gardening show, because it is going to be different from the first season. But if I can't get the edit where we need to be, it might get pushed back another week. But keep your eyes out for that, and we'll let you know on that front. And with that being said, Mado Hadum Chihitcha, please.
Mado.
All right. Chivisalacho.